thank you very much for these words so welcome. I thought I had already delivered my speech this morning. But I think you're taking a risk inviting me again. I think you must be masochistic. But before I proceed further, I have a little two books here with me, which I want to present. One to Vusi. Vusi, this is a book on Nepal. I know that I share some of the same ideas as Thandika, and I have a copy of Nepal that was produced within a year of Nepal's formation. There are articles by many people, but most importantly, by the head of the ECA at that time. It's an excellent historical thing. That's for you. Thank you very much. And oh, please. And I have a one for Femi. Femi, this is Femi. This is a book called. It's my reflections when I was in South Center for 5 years in Geneva. It's called Reflections and Foresights on Development and Globalization. Then it says, dare to think different. So, dare to think different. Well, I want to say a couple of things, but I'll say this for myself. I'm not going to persuade you to agree with me necessarily. You have to make up your own minds. I'm going to talk about my own experience. And the one point I want to make is, well, this morning I talked about economics as an abstraction. I think academia is a distraction. Economics in abstraction, academia is a distraction. When I first came to Zimbabwe, Ibo Mandaza gave me a job. And we formed an organization called IDS, Institute of Development Studies. And I have always been grateful for Ibo and Nathan Shamirira for that. Nathan, whom all of you know perhaps, then said I should join the university. I said, thank you, but no thank you. I don't want to go to academia. I have been an activist in our struggle in Uganda, and I remain an activist. So I chose, with my wife, to form an organization called RESCON, Research and Consultancy. And the reason for that was that when I worked with Ibo, in my report on forming the IDS, I said that there should be two parts to that. One should be research, the other consultancy, so that we're involved in consultancy work as well, in order for us to give policy advice to our governments. Well, the minister at the time, I won't mention his name, decided to keep it just research but not consultancy. So then my wife and I formed an organization called RESCON, Research and Consultancy. Well, we used to get some approaches from World Bank, IMF. I said, thank you, but no thank you, I don't want you. So we worked in rural areas. For 22 years, Mary, my wife, by the way, I learned a lot from her. So I would say another woman is my wife, Mary. Some of you know her here also. Well, actually, in October, well, now that I'm her, she's at home, we celebrate, in this October, we'll be celebrating our 56th wedding anniversary. Yeah. Yeah. Asante. So then we formed this. So academia is a distraction. I'll tell you more about what I learned when I was involved with my wife Mary on the ground. The second general point I want to make is, in conjunction with what I said earlier about economics being an abstraction, Ubuntu talks about interconnectedness of things. All things are interconnected. And what the Western civilization has done is to break knowledge. That's called a Cartesian, Descartes, the French one, who said you must break down and study them. The problem with that is they have advanced in an imbalanced manner, very, very good in medicine, but very poor in other things. Cartesian logic is a fragmentation of knowledge. Ubuntu is interconnectedness. So we must believe in the interconnectedness of things. And that emphasizes my point about economics being an abstraction. Then a third general point I want to make before I talk about my experiences in Zimbabwe is words are prisons. Words and capture your mind and you think in words. I learned something from Zambezi Valley. The first place we went to work in Zimbabwe was in the valley, below the escarpment. And what I learned was mainly from two groups of people. One were the spirit mediums. You know about spirit mediums. Well, they guided the struggle. The second Chimurenga was guided by the spirit mediums. After independence, they were forgotten, more or less. And I learned a lot from them. For example, I learned that hybrid seeds are bad because hybrid seeds, they're amazingly scientific. Through intermediary, they explained to me that when you put hybrid seeds, they need fertilizers. And the fertilizers suck up all the humus from the soil. And the more they suck up, the more fertilizers you have to put, the more water you have to put. Amazing. I learned from them. And the women, with Mary always, whenever we used to go together, on my side, and many women from Harare also, I learned a lot from them. There, I shouldn't mention name, but Chief Chapoto had the only grinding mill there in the whole of the lower Zambezi, and the only water hole. So we worked with women, and I learned a lot. As a Marxist, I thought there was class analysis. You don't have to be a Marxist to know that. You can go and see for yourself. But overlaying there was the gender disparity too. So what I learned from the Zambezi Valley is that cutting across class, the women got together. And we worked with them. And within about 3 years, it took us a long time, we got funding from Lutheran World Federation, some churches and so on. We built boreholes, grinding mills, and it was all the time led by women. And I'm saying this from experience, that somehow I came from myself, a very macho culture myself. And I have to say that I owe it to, therefore I say women of Zambezi Valley, women. So this is by way of my, and I learned something from women also in Zambezi Valley. They questioned words. Words. When women got together, they said, these are all macho words. We have to challenge the words invented by the male gender, and that applies generally. When we now question the imperial domination over us, we question their vocabulary. Also, we have to build our own vocabulary. If you don't build your vocabulary, you use theirs. If you don't write your own narrative, they will write it for you. So we have to be self-reliant, not only in economics, but also in thinking, in making our words. So we have to do consciously. Having done these larger philosophical remarks, I would say that I want to expand a little bit on what I said this morning about activism. I'm not an academic, really. I left academia when I left Dar es Salaam University. That I gave my last academic lecture there, and then I have never been an academic. I'm an activist. And I've learned a lot from my activism. I won't bore you too much, and you don't have to agree with me, but these are my principles that I derived from our experience on Siatini, Southern and Eastern African Trade Information Negotiation Institute, which is now for 17 years in existence now. We still are quite strong, actually. Now, one is be uncompromisingly independent in your thought. No compromise. Don't get into debate on this issue, and we need to stick to our vocabulary, our epistemology. Why is epistemology a big question? Where do you get knowledge from? Where do you get knowledge from? Knowledge does not come from books. I now live in Oxford, and one of the first questions I ask the students is, where do you get your knowledge from? Inevitably they say books. I say nonsense. Knowledge does not come from books. Knowledge comes always from experience, always, in social sciences. In the hard sciences, they could come from experiments in laboratory, and they have hypotheses and so on. I don't know much about hard sciences. In the social sciences, all knowledge comes from experience. Those people who have experience write books, and the books have derivative knowledge. In the financial world, they are called derivative instruments, by the way. Some of you who know financial world will know that derivatives are simply instruments, financial instruments, that are derived from an asset, real asset, okay? But these derivatives have no relationship with the assets at all. They are just flying in the air, in the vacuum. And I said, books are derivative knowledge. And all the books that we have read on Africa are derivative knowledge, written by professors who used to come and teach us as Makerere and all that, and claim to be authorities. Purely their experience. We have to codify our experience. And so I taught something to students that they did not know. They think knowledge comes from books. It doesn't. Also, all social sciences are ideological. Even Marxist. All. There is no ideology-free social science. There isn't one. It's either ideology of working class, or most of them for the ruling classes. So basically, we question epistemologically how knowledge is created. Knowledge is created by people in struggle, always. And therefore, it's always existence before essence. Reality before concepts. Concepts come from reality. And that's what I learned a lot from Zambezi Valley and other parts of Zimbabwe and Southern Africa. The second point I want to make is that although you are uncompromising, you must maintain your independence, you adjust to changing reality. You have to adapt to a new reality because change all the time. And therefore, although you have a strategic goal, which could take a long time, I don't know, generation or more, you got to be able to adjust to a changing reality that happens every day. So tactics of struggle are very important in line with the long-term strategy. And we worked this out in our struggle in Uganda. I was involved with many comrades in the struggle in Uganda against Amin. In fact, I could now declare openly, because I'm allowed to do so, we were an underground movement. And we had a Communist Party of Uganda. And we had a guerrilla force in Mount Elgin. And we realized that we leaders, Nabudere, how many of you know Nabudere? Some of you know Nabudere? Yeah, some of you know him, yeah. He was our leader. And we came to Mount Elgin and realized that, hey, we were far ahead. The leadership were there. The people were not behind us. So whenever guerrillas used to go to farms, right, to get food, etc., they would just take food from the farmers. And the farmers said, this is not revolution. You know what? The only guerrilla army, in my view, we were Maoists, the only Maoist guerrilla army that voluntarily disbanded our army. We disbanded. Disarmed our guerrilla forces. We said, how can we? Revolution by masses. We were there. So we disbanded. And we adopted a strategy called grassrooting. We went back to grassroots. I won't deliberate on that more. The point I wanted to make is tactics. Strategy, long term, okay, long term can be generations, but tactics must adapt to changing reality. So we came back to, I won't go into that too much, we came back to Uganda, we had our own government, we didn't last very long. The military took over. Second military coup. Anyway, we were in second exile again very quickly. Okay, the third point I want to make is that this concept of regime change is an imperial construct. They talk about regime change in Zimbabwe, regime change in Libya. I refuse to use that term, regime change. That's their construct. They go on interfering in other countries to change the regimes that they want. No, we want to change regimes when we want, the people want. People want a change. But that must come from below, from us, not from the imperial agents, because they destroy us. What they've done in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, you know all that. And now Somalia too. No, it's not our construct. People want democratic change, yes, but we'll do that by mass action from below. That's the only way to bring about changes in our governments, democratic changes. And the final point, and I'll sit down, is that there can be no, forgive me for using this term because that's what I believe in revolution. There can be no revolution without revolutionary cadres. You can't have revolution without revolutionary cadres. And that's why I think Timali is a good institution. It's for leadership training, African leadership training. And we need to question in our mind the earlier things that I said, the language, the need for democratic change led by people. And I'm not being patronizing, forgive my friends here, to the women in Zimbabwe, I'm not patronizing, I learned from them. Women, I'm not being, women, amazing. Our women cadres, based on our experience. If you don't have revolutionary cadres, forget about revolution. Can't happen. Because the cadres are the ones who know, who can congeal within their consciousness, within their mindset, and their political practice. The knowledge learned through hundreds of years of struggles of humankind against oppression. And that embodiment of that knowledge forms a cadre who can then reach out to the people and conscientize them, or that's a big word to use, and make them also aware that we have to fight together in bringing about change. So, comrades, allow me to call you comrades and friends. I'm very pleased that Timali has included me in their thinking process. We are going to meet again, and I'm hoping I might come more often to Timali so that we can continue to discuss things like that. We have a long agenda in front of us. You see, cadre developing is not an overnight thing. It takes generations. And therefore, our struggle is still long. But to repeat the message I gave this morning, the empire is dying. It's dying. There are others coming up like China and Russia and Brazil and so on. We must ally with them, but careful. We must always maintain, that's in my book as well, always maintain control over our own destiny in our own economy. Always. But I would say that the road ahead is long and challenging. Hey, but we should work together, won't we? We will you not? Thank you very much. Thank you so much for listening to me.